This is the On the Mark podcast, bringing you facts, opinions, and personal experiences from the outdoor industry.
Got the opportunity to shoot an AR-15. That was one of the funnest experiences that I've had.
It's pretty exciting. It's a big rush.
Presented by SightMark, an industry leader in optics, bore sights, night vision, and more. Make your mark. Welcome to the On the Mark podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Hamilton. Today, we've got Country Attic Treasures out of Ohio. And representing Country Attic, we've got Kevin and Scott. Kevin, are you on the line?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. Scott, we got you here?
I'm here.
Terrific. Now, you guys both have the last name Reddy. Is that right?
That's correct. You noticed that.
I did notice that. Well, and Scott, not you, Scott, but the Scott here at my office, who is y'all's rep, I believe, was telling me that Country Attic Treasures is actually a family business. And when I say family business, I'm talking on the scale of like Pawn Stars and Duck Dynasty, where really is truly a family business. Is that right?
It is. It is truly a family business. And interesting enough, it's been a family business since it was founded in 1956. Now, it's not all been the same family. We got into the business in 2016, and we purchased it from the two brothers that had inherited the business long down the line that their father had started back in the late 1950s. And so it's been a family business for a long time.
Oh, very cool. Did you guys personally know the brother, or was it one of those things where you kind of just stumbled on a good opportunity?
Well, a little bit of both. I mean, I personally was a pretty good sized customer of theirs, I guess. I'd look at it that way. And Mike and Larry were the two brothers, and they used to joke with me all the time. I'd come in and be looking at all the guns, and I'd buy this one or I'd buy that one, and ask them about, this gun or that gun. And one day they were joking. They said, we've been doing this a long time, and we're ready to retire. But rather than you just buying one at a time each week, why don't you just come in here and buy the whole thing? And that's kind of how the conversation sort of started from that point forward.
Nice. Okay, so now fast forward to today. It's obviously you two. Who else in the family is working up there?
Well, my wife Amy is a big part of it, and my other son Christopher. He's my oldest son. Kevin's my youngest, and so it's really the four of us plus another 4 employees. We have a total of 8.
Okay.
That work with us, and but there's one of us there almost all the time from the family anyway.
How is it working with family? You guys just completely want to rip each other's heads off sometimes, or everybody pretty much on the same page 100% of the time?
Yeah, we have a rule that when we're going to yell at each other, we go back in the office and close the door first, because that happens often enough that we have to remind ourselves we're out in public and in front of customers.
Yeah, sure.
That's not ideal, but no, we surprisingly we get along real well. Everybody brings a certain talent to the party, and it's that combination of experience that I bring. Maybe some youth and some appreciation of what people are looking at in terms of new technologies today that Kevin brings. Kevin's the marketing guy for the business, and he does all of our online, our website, and all of the the multimedia work. Christopher has a good, strong financial background. He's the practical one. He's the one that just kind of looks at us with that eyeball and says, "What do you want to do?" And so between the 4 of us, we've got a pretty good mix of talent, and that's really what makes it work day to day. I had a history of growing up in another family business. My father started a business back in the mid 70s, and I worked in the industrial lighting business industry. I was a manufacturer of industrial lighting products. I did that for 32 years. So I had a real strong business background with a passion for the hobby of hunting.
Guns are more fun.
And guns are fun. Guns were fun, and then I got in the business.
Yeah, gotcha. Well, it's good to hear that you guys, all kind of bring something unique to the table and all get along really well. When I've heard in the past of people working with their spouse or close family members. They're like, "Oh, dear Lord, don't do that. You'll never talk to them again after a year or two." It's like it either goes really, really badly or it's a huge success. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground. But the one good thing about it, I would assume, is you have that sense of security that the people inside your shop have your shop's best interest at heart every single day.
You really do. There's nothing like family. Of course, the employees that are with us day to day, they feel like family. They're as close as family can be without having the last name, and that trust level amongst all of us, not only with each other, but as a commitment to the business and a commitment to the success of the business, is what really makes it work well. And but sure. There's it's got challenges. There's no doubt about it. The challenge is how to leave it alone sometimes, because you work all day long and then you come home and and then you're still talking about it. And sometimes we just have to find ways to
I got to be honest. It almost sounds like you're explaining an episode of Yellowstone to me. I don't know if you watch Yellowstone, but
God, yes, that's one of my favorite shows.
Hey, I'm ready for it to come back. Yeah. I'm telling you, I'm ready for it to come back. But same kind of.
I can't wait till the prequel comes up. You heard about the prequel too.
Yes. Same kind of concept though. I mean, they all work, side by side out on the ranch, and then at dinner time, it's like, all right, no talks of work at dinner, and then they all talk about work and get mad and storm off. But for you guys, it sounds
what he fails to mention is that we all run a operating horse farm together too.
Oh,
and all live in close proximity as well.
Do you have a film crew filming Yellowstone right now? Because I'm starting to get the sense that you guys are that.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of reality TV shows. Like I live one, so I don't have to watch them on TV.
Yeah. So I got to be honest with you guys about something. When I was very unfamiliar with you guys when when Scott had told me that he had somebody from Country Attic Treasures. My eyebrow kind of went up at first. I was kind of thinking, well, that sounds a little interesting. And the reason was it's not your guys' fault. The reason is we're in very close proximity to a place called Midlothian here in Texas. And in Midlothian, they're going to get a little shout out. There's a thrift store called Heaven's Attic or something like that. And so when they told me Country Attic Treasures, my mind immediately went to that thrift store in Midlothian. I was like, oh, is this going to be like some little thrift store? Like, what? Scott, I want some quality guests on here, And Scott's like, he's like, do your research, go look at them. So I'm like, all right. Yeah. So I pull up your guys' website, and I'm honestly blown away. Your building, it looks amazing. I mean, was that originally a house at one point that got converted over into a gun shop?
No. I designed and purposely built that building for this business.
Really?
Give you a little bit of history on the name, and we get a lot of questions about that name. And you can imagine that occasionally we'll have two older women walk in from the parking lot, 80 years old, and looking around saying, "Where's all the antiques?" And their jaw just drops when they see nothing but rows and racks of firearms. But the name came from the original family. The original founders, as I said, in the late 50s, opened a general store. It was called Country Attic Treasures General Store.
Gotcha.
And the general store was much like you imagine from the 50s in that it sold everything. It sold paint, it sold nails, it sold ladders. And, of course, back then, that's where you went to get your shotguns and your shotgun shells.
Yeah.
And as the big box retailers moved into that industry, moved into that market, they got pushed further and further away from the hardware business and really migrated themselves into an exclusively firearms-related business.
Very cool.
And they had such a great reputation. I mean, when we sat down and negotiated the purchase of the business, one of the things that I wanted to do was bring the business into the modern needs of the industry and what the customers were looking for today in terms of service, in terms of quality, in terms of responsiveness. And they were still doing everything on the back of a napkin, and it worked. It worked for them for many, many years, but it wasn't going to allow us to grow the business.
Right.
And so we operated for the first year in a little house. Basically, that's where their business was. When their dad built the general store in the late 50s, he built it in the middle of a neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
And so we were literally in the middle of the neighborhood. And we operated there for a year while we designed and built the facility that we're in right now. And so that's really a product of a lot of research and a lot of review of other types of shops in not only in this region but around the country. And it kind of all culminated in that design. It took us about a year to put it all together.
Well, I think it turned out great. And actually, once I looked at the pictures of especially the interior of the building and the way that you guys have it designed, I'm like, man, actually that name resonates really well with what they got, the flow you've got going on in the inside. I mean, you've even got the looked like there was a wagon display set up in there, and
right.
You have all these taxidermy mounts and stuff all over the walls, and just the lines and lines of guns. I mean, everything went really well. But it's funny that you mentioned back in the day, when it was the general store, you could just walk in and get your shotgun there too. There's a lot of people nowadays that have no idea. You used to be able to walk into a general store, walk to the back and grab a CVA breakover 12 gauge for $50. And you could do that. You could do that at the general store. And a lot of those old shotguns sitting in your grandpa's safes right now came from the general store.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's...
I always loved telling people back then it required the same amount of paperwork to buy a shotgun as it did a 2x4.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, and speaking about shotguns, one of the things that Scott had let me know is that you guys actually kind of specialize in some more premium shotguns, some of the higher end. Now, before we get into this, I want to let you guys know right up front that I have not even touched a shotgun that's considered premium. I mean, I shoot a Remington 870 pump action 12 gauge, and I have for a long time. So my knowledge of the nicer shotguns is very minimal. That's where I'm looking for you guys to educate me. What takes a shotgun to the next level as far as just quality? What are some things somebody could look for as if they're like, hey, you know what, I want to step up my game and get a little bit nicer shotgun? What's something that they could look for?
Well, I think if you look at why people buy firearms in general, there's so many different reasons that really motivate that purchase. And the industry is so big and it's covered by so many different types of dealers that when we were looking at the market here regionally and blending it, frankly, with my own personal interests, I saw an opportunity to gear the store towards that buyer who was looking for something that was a long-term investment, as much of a tool as it was, but also something that they would feel a lot of personal pride in.
Sure.
That they would look at as a firearm that they may pass down to the kids someday or through the family.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking at guns, and people ask me all the time, what's the difference between a $500 shotgun and a $5,000 shotgun?
Right.
And it really comes in two areas. Number one, it comes in the materials that are used to build it, and the amount of time, the labor that it's put into that gun, both mechanically and to make it aesthetically pleasing, as some of these guns are built. So when we're looking at the $500 shotgun, you can kill a bird, you can break a target just as easily. Well, I won't say just as easily necessarily, but you can do it with a $500 shotgun, and you can do it with a $5,000 shotgun. When we have folks looking to invest in the kind of higher end guns, they're looking for guns that have a better balance. They're looking for guns that will last for multi generations.
Sure.
That really, frankly, never wear out, so to speak. They're looking for guns that will always remain reliable without a lot of repairs required after a certain amount of use put through them.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, they're looking for guns that are good looking.
Yeah.
They're really, it's like buying an automobile when you go to the dealership and you buy, you can see the base model, and then you can see the trim package that's the top of the line.
Right.
In a lot of cases, they function very similar, but it's that pride of ownership. It's that artistic influence that comes in to create a firearm that's now closer to a piece of art on the spectrum, maybe than just a tool,
Sure.
on the other end of that spectrum.
Sure.
So,
yeah. I mean, I was looking at some of them that you guys had posted up on the website, and I was actually blown away by the amount of detail that was just in, like, even the engraving, not just in the stock, but also into, the metal that's actually in the gun. Some of the details that were in those were really, like, it's an art piece. It's something that, you want to show somebody when they come over and, like, hey, look at this. Like, this is something special.
Kevin spends a lot of time on the photography. Let him talk a little bit about, what he observes and why we spend so much time trying to describe those types of products, because we're selling them both to our walk-in customers, but we're selling them all over the country. We sell them to people that find us online and look at the products just like you did online, and they need to have a level of confidence that they know what they're going to get when they open that box up.
Right.
Yeah, it's always tough to really explain to someone over email why something might be priced, the way it is. For example, I just wanted to pull up our website for a reference point. I'm looking at a Caesar Guarini Essex Limited, and it's one of those guns that is so hard to if you were just explaining to someone over the phone, you would say, oh, well, it has beautiful wood and it's got some really rich contrast to the stock. And then when you get to the receiver, it's a full side plate receiver with case coloring and white gold, rose gold, and yellow gold inlays throughout it. But and it sounds fancy, but then when you look up the pictures and you just see it's such a beautiful piece of art that not only can you own, you can take out and go, hit above an 85 at the local sporting clays course, or find one in a 20 gauge or a 28 gauge and bring it out to the field and hunt with it.
Right.
It always makes those experiences more of an occasion. And I like the opportunity to show these in such great detail, because as my father said, we have interest in these guns from all over the country. And while it's so hard to, persuade them to commit to a purchase, once you can show them that gun in intimate detail from across the country, it really helps.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the exact gun you just talked about right now, and you're right. I mean, if you tried to tell me over the phone, you're relying on my ability to make this picture in my head, and I can tell you right now that wouldn't happen. I would never envision that. I mean, it's such a beautiful firearm, and you can say that all you want, but until you actually see the details in the pictures, you don't really quite understand. But just as far as like the mechanical aspect of the firearm, I mean, if I'm paying a large ticket for a shotgun, I expect that thing to be, if it's a pump action, I want that to feel like butter. I mean, is that the type of quality you're looking at in these, or?
Oh, absolutely. And there's a good example, because you described the firearm that you shoot right now, that 870.
Yeah.
And we have a gun in the store that's made by a company called Fab Arm. And Fab Arm is part of that Guarini family. They just happens to be part of that Guarini family that we just talked about.
Yeah.
In Italy. They manufacture in Italy a fantastic pump action firearm. So it doesn't always have to be totally artistic. It doesn't have to be, just aesthetic or it can be a really well-built functioning tool like a pump shotgun. And the pump shotgun that they manufacture is built for the Italian military and law enforcement market over there.
Yeah.
It was not a very marketable product 2 years ago, I'll tell you, because the pricing in the U.S. was relatively capped in the pump shotgun market. But when the market just exploded in 2020 with COVID and the demand for firearms and the supply problems that we've had in general, all of a sudden this $1,200 pump shotgun was something that people would be willing to look at.
Right. Yeah.
And we brought our first one into the store, and I can tell you what, I've never felt a pump shotgun that felt like butter to your. I mean, that's the best explanation I can give you, the best description I can give you.
Yeah.
When you manipulate the moving parts on that gun, it is built as smooth as you might imagine. The best 1911 custom built. Nighthawk Custom or something,
Sure,
an Ed Brown or something in that fine.
Everything's just
so it's
smooth.
It's unbelievable. It really is.
Not just smooth, really, really incredibly well built. The barrel doesn't look like much, but when you read the little inscription, it's over pressure tested to over 1630 psi. It could probably handle a double load, and still be okay. They're so toughly built, and then there's also, other features that you can get into when you start pulling it apart. Like it's got a quick release, it's got a pick rail on top that you can just undo one knob, swivel it out of the way, and it'll pop out, and then you still have iron sights built into it. There's just
very cool.
There's so many little things like that go into that shotgun, but it does become a value at a certain point just because of how well it is built.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want anybody that might be listening to think you guys only sell shotguns. They have a whole array of firearms. I mean, they sell basically everything. But the higher end shotguns was something that Scott had mentioned. There's not a lot of places that actually carry a lot of the brands that you guys do. So I wanted to kind of highlight that. I am interested. You mentioned COVID and how shotguns kind of just exploded with that. So it was a mixture of COVID and threats against the Second Amendment as far as semi-automatic rifles go. It caused a flurry of people to run to, their local gun shops or online and order semi-automatic weapons, mainly like AR-15s. How did that translate for you guys over on the shotgun side of things? I mean, it sounds like you saw a boom on that side, but kind of take me into that, because that's not something that you really heard about here in the public. It was everybody's buying AR-15s and all this.
Right. Well, what was most important about last year was the amount of traffic increase that we saw in the store in general, and so we've been a business that's operated to somewhat in an under the radar type fashion. We've really relied on word of mouth for the growth of our business. And, we're excited to see the reward come in growth that from the time we purchased that business to today is almost fourfold. So, the word of mouth works.
Yeah.
It really does. And it's building a reputation, building it on service. That's the most important part. But with last year, we had a tremendous increase in the number of people that just came into the store for whatever reason. They were looking for pump shotguns, they were looking for ARs, they were looking for their first handgun. These are all product categories that we do support in addition to the higher end shotguns.
Right.
But I'll tell you that most of the increase last year was on that side, was more of a defensive firearm purchase in general.
Sure.
But once they saw the kind of business that we had, and they saw the kind of facility that we had, that's what I noticed. That's very consistent, whether it's last year or even prior years, is when somebody comes in looking for their first firearm, or they're looking to expand their interest from just handguns to rifles or rifles to shotguns.
Right.
It's very, very quick for them to move along and become a more interested buyer in the broader commodity of products.
Sure.
Because let's face it, they're fun.
Right.
I mean, everybody that starts with these things, may have their specific reason that they get into firearms to begin with, but we all kind of end up together at the end because we're enjoying it. We're really having a lot of fun with it. It's a great activity. It's a great recreation. It's a good, skill set to have for our own protection. And, it's our goal basically that everybody that walks through that door, regardless of what their interest is that we're in a position to talk to them about that interest. We're in a position to provide them with products that that satisfy their needs. So it was a big year for rifles and handguns last year. There's no doubt about it. And some of that has translated into the higher end shotguns just because of more awareness of us as a business.
Well, and my guess is that's probably going to be it's probably going to lead to a lot of trickle effect for you guys for many years to come. Because a lot of times, let's say somebody walks in there and they pay, I don't know, $800 to $1,500 for an AR-15. They might have looked at those shotguns and been like, hey, that's pretty cool. Eventually I'm going to need one of those. And it might be 2 or 3 years down the road when they circle back around to you guys. But they're probably going to end up coming back to y'all because of the experience they had and just everything involved with their purchasing experience the first time around.
Right. You absolutely hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's our business strategy in a nutshell, is to build those relationships and count on that long-term interest and follow that long-term interest as it evolves throughout the whole shooting industry. And it's worked real well for us. Absolutely.
Well, you mentioned back that the biggest growth was in the personal defense side, whether that be handguns or ARs or whatever. I mean, the riots had a lot of people going out and buying handguns, just something they could keep on them. I noticed that Ohio is not one of the constitutional carry states. Texas just joined. It's going to come in effect on September 1st, where we've passed legislation to allow constitutional carry. Does Ohio have any kind of talks at all about maybe implementing that in the future? Do you guys know anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely, the interest is strong here. If you look at where Ohio rates in terms of gun ownership across the country, we always rate in one of the highest categories of the top. I don't know whether we're in the top 10 or top 15, but we're always in the top of the list. We've got I think a very strong Second Amendment support in this state, and we've been fortunate to be able to have concealed carry in a very broad basis that has grown tremendously in the last few years. I don't know how long it's going to take us to make that next step or to take that next step. I know there's legislation both in the House and the Senate that's been introduced in the state government to introduce the constitutional carry concept and to bring us to that next level. I don't know how long it'll take, to be honest with you. I mean, politics is something that none of us can predict. Yeah. But I think we're moving in the right direction.
Sure. Well, it's just interesting to me that you guys do allow open carry without a permit. So Any of the states that allow open carry without a permit, it just always seemed to me is like, well, there's really not much of a reason for to permit concealed carry other than it is a revenue stream for the state. It does produce revenue for the state. So that was our big thing.
I think that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that. Well, from what I've noticed is the way they're going about this. They want to maintain the ability to have a concealed carry permit. So I think that the philosophy will be that, there may be enough of an advantage in a lot of people's minds that they're going to continue to do that. I mean, personally, I could see myself doing that. I mean, I've had a concealed carry permit. Even if they opened up constitutional carry, I'd probably continue to apply and pay for my renewal every year, or every 5 years. So I think that's the approach. Is they're not trying to replace one with the other. They're just trying to enhance the ability of Ohio citizens to gun ownership.
Sure. And I'm kind of like you, because even though it's going to pass in September here, or it's already passed, it's going to go into effect in September here. I'm like you. I've had mine for a while. I'm going to go ahead and renew mine when the time comes. But the main reason for me is there are states that honor my permit that I travel to. And so if I at least have that permit, I'll be able to travel to those states. So there's definitely an advantage to it. Not to mention, I mean, you can never suffer from educational courses on firearms handling. Or for me, the biggest takeaways with the LTC course here in Texas was just learning the legalities behind everything. What sign is legal for a shop to put up that I actually have to abide by, and is a
Right.
Is a pistol silhouette with a cross through it, is that a legal sign I'm not allowed to carry in that store? And, if I do, what are the legal repercussions of that? Those are all really good things to know. So I'm an advocate for it, but at the same time, I also fully embrace everybody's right to have a firearm and carry that firearm. Do you think that constitutional carry would be something that you guys would like to see in Ohio?
Well, I have mixed feelings. I'll be perfectly honest with you. You can't be in this industry and not be exposed to the variety of people that are handling firearms today. And I'm a bigger proponent of education and training than anything else that we've discussed so far. And that's what frankly causes my mixed feelings on this. We train on a regular basis, both with handguns, long guns, and shotguns. We go to a professional course here in Ohio, a company. If you're looking for subject matter for a future podcast, there's an outfit called Tactical Defense Institute. I'll give them a little bit of plug because they are a fantastic training facility and take it very, very seriously. And they really enjoy teaching new gun owners. They really like to focus on people that haven't developed a lot of bad habits, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And so, I hope and would believe that if more people were able to own firearms and were able to carry those firearms, that would only increase the amount of training that takes place in this country, and I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
And context how much he really believes in this training. I've grown up, on this same family farm. We, I think I first got to break a clay at age 8 with a 20 gauge pump shotgun or something. Him helping me hold it practically. Yeah. And I did not get to handle a handgun until I turned 21 and got to go to these same professional educators we're talking about.
Really?
Just because we really wanted me to have a blank slate going into that so I could absorb as much as I did. And I'm honestly grateful I did that because I really feel it was the best way for me to possibly learn.
You know what? That's actually, that's really impressive to me that you guys did that. But that brings up a really good point because there's a lot of people, myself, for instance, a few years ago, before I joined the firearms industry, if somebody had came up and asked me if I was knowledgeable with firearms, I would have been like, yeah, absolutely. I grew up around firearms. I live on a family farm. I've shot all my dad's and granddad's firearms. I have a few myself, and I've been around them my whole life. Yeah, I'm completely knowledgeable. Then I joined the firearms industry. And then I take some training classes, and then I realize I actually didn't know all that much. And it's like there's a whole group of people that were old Jeff that are currently think they know everything there is to know, and it's just because they physically know how to load their magazine and rack their slide back. But in reality, there's a whole bunch of things that go into actually handling a firearm properly, using it properly, taking care of it and storing it properly that a lot of people just don't even consider. So I'm like you. I'm for constitutional carry, but I do hope that, it stems into more classes and more training. But for me, if people have more access to these things, they're going to need to be responsible and take advantage of those classes and stuff like that.
But I think the more that the industry helps to normalize firearms in this country, the more available that kind of training will be,
Absolutely.
To all of us. And that's what I hope is that it becomes, such a regular thing, like driving an automobile in this country.
Yeah.
That the industry that grows around that regular, access to firearms then supports that additional training, and it becomes, an expectation that we all have of each other to have that kind of training.
Sure. Yeah. Like driving an electric automobile here in the next couple of years. Get 50% of those. Now, one of you guys doesn't just live on the ground. Y'all spend some time in the air. Who is it? Scott?
Yeah, that's pilot? Me. Yeah, that's me too.
Talk me through that. Why'd you get into? How'd that happen?
Well, that was my passion when I was a kid. So my dad was an Air Force veteran, and I grew up with an interest in aviation from the time that I could walk. And I was fortunate that when I went through college, got out of school, I went through Navy ROTC. Did not fly in the Navy, but had such an interest at that point that I continued my training and frankly getting the ratings and the licenses required to fly professionally. And I did that. Actually, I still do on a part-time basis, but I did that for a number of years in my early career. Flew primarily corporate aviation, got an opportunity to get involved in some warbirds. And so I have an opportunity, I'm one of the few guys that you'll meet probably in a gun store that has a B-25 type rating. So, the old twin engine bomber. But it's, I don't know, it's some similarities, I guess, in terms of the military interest, the military background might just happen to be, in airplanes and firearms, I guess. But I've been doing that for a long time. This will mark the 40th year, I guess, since I got my license, my original license.
Very nice.
And,
do you have a little personal plane or?
I don't actually.
Really? Okay.
It's so expensive to fly.
Yeah.
the only way I do it is that I told my kids, I said, because both of them expressed interest in it.
Yeah.
And I said, it's a little different than what it was 40 years ago. It's a lot more expensive. And frankly, I've seen a lot of folks try to go into that avocation. And for a hobby, you either got to be really wealthy or you got to get paid to do it. And my path was getting paid. Yeah. And as long as I was getting paid to do it, I could keep doing it. But if I had to pay my own way there, I couldn't have afforded it years ago.
It's funny because I was a kitchen manager for a little pizza joint in Oklahoma called Gambino's Pizza. And the owner of the company, his name was Tyson Tucker. And he was a really cool guy. He was a guy that would just come and work beside his employees and kind of had a personal connection with everybody. Just a real good, down-to-earth guy. But when I was first started off working there, I didn't know much about him. And he was making a pizza there right beside me one day. And he was a single guy. And he was like, yeah, I met this girl last night. I think I'm going to take her to a date down in Dallas this weekend. I think I'm going to fly her out there. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds cool. Sounds expensive. He's like, yeah, flying's super expensive. But I think it'll be worth it. I'm going to fly her down to Dallas. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we'll see you on Monday or whatever. Well, he was back. He was back in the store the next day. And I was like, oh, did your date cancel? He's like, oh, no. I'm like, what? I thought you were going to fly down to Dallas. And he was like, oh, we did. And I was like, oh, and you flew back? I was like, you made a day trip or whatever? And he was like, yeah, I flew down there and flew back. And I was so confused. I was like, there's no way. Between getting to the airport, we're in Alva, Oklahoma. This is several hours away from the nearest airport. I'm like, there's no way you couldn't have done that. I'm like, how did you pull this off? You're back to work the next day. And he's like, oh, no, I fly. And he had his own little personal airplane. One of those, and don't ask me questions about it. I can't tell you. One of those, you spin the propeller and it takes off going. And he would fly to Dallas and do day trips. And he said it took him from northern Oklahoma, talking 15 minutes south of the Kansas border. He said it would take him like 3 hours to get to Dallas. Yeah. I'm like, holy smokes, that's insane. But anyway.
It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of freedom connected with that, too. It certainly is. And it's important for me because it's a passion of mine, but it also gets me out of the office.
Sure.
So it lets the rest of the crew take care of things. And I've got such a great team around me that I can pick up a little bit of, it's call it my side gig in today's language, because it's kind of fun. I do it for the fun more than the money, but it's, I can only afford to do it if I'm getting paid.
Right. Yeah. Well, do you do any of the, do you do like any aerial shows or anything like that?
Not anymore. I used to fly some of the old warbirds at some of the local air shows. Yeah. I've been blessed to have access to some things that a lot of people never get a chance to get in. And,
sure.
And
you've never landed a plane on the top of a moving bus?
I have not done that. No. I've not ever jumped out of a perfectly good airplane.
Well, yeah, why would you?
I get teased about. How come you haven't skydived before? And I said, no thanks.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've always said that I'd like to do, but somebody's going to have to force me to do it because I'm probably not going to jump. They'd probably have to knock me out and pull a chute for me halfway through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, when I was coming in to record this podcast, my boss stopped me and he was like, "Hey, Jeff, we really like how your podcasts are going. We think they're entertaining enough. We seem to have a good amount of people listening, but we want to kind of pump some more value for SiteMark into these." And it's one of the things that I told him when we started this. I was like, "Look, we can't do this as a product push. I don't want to be like some of the other companies where we come on here and we just shove product down people's throat for an hour." And he said, well, you need to do something. And I was like, I'm absolutely not going to talk about, SiteMark and how our products have evolved over the years and our quality has just improved. I'm not going to sit here and tell everybody that, much to people's surprise, we have a lifetime warranty on most of our products, at least a 3-year warranty on some of our digital products like the Wraith, which is wildly popular. I said, I'm not going to do that. These people don't want to hear this stuff. They want to hear quality stuff from my guests, personal experiences. And they don't care if the Wraith can see 400 yards at nighttime with the stock IR light. Further than that, if you put one of those hog light illuminators on it. So I just had to put him in his place before I walked in here. And now as we're winding down the show, I know I'm going to have to walk out that door and look at him in the face and tell him he didn't get his highlight like he wanted. But
that's all right. That's all right. If it weren't for your products, then we wouldn't have had a chance to get to meet you and be here today.
Yeah, very
I
true.
can tell you that the products that we use from your company have been second to none. And there's only one. I won't call him a client or a customer, but there's one personality locally that doesn't like your products, and that's the local coyotes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
because that's how we got to know you guys, and how we built, and frankly increased. That was another aspect of how we grew our business from the business that we purchased. I mean, the business that we purchased would have never been into that kind of technology.
Sure.
And so, as much as we are into the high end products, we also are pushing the higher end technologies.
Yeah.
And as it applies to the firearm industry, and we have found, and I have found through personal experience that that capability, whether you're looking at thermal, whether you're looking at simply digital night vision, but that capability to the average user like me is unbelievable. I mean, if you had asked me 15 years ago whether I ever thought I could do something like that on my own, I'd have probably never believed it. But to have what used to be reserved for the military or reserved for folks that had a whole lot more money than either one of us, is now available to the general market, and it's fantastic. It really is, and we really enjoy selling it. And we really enjoy using it ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that you referred to a handful of. I like that you referred to some dead coyotes as local personalities.
I don't know what else to call them, but they're actually personalities in our store. Because when with their stuff, when we've shot a couple of nice ones, we've had them mounted full body mounts, and they help us sell the product. To be honest with you,
I got to be honest. I've got a stuffed bobcat right above my desk here at the office, and it is the ugliest. It is the ugliest damn thing you've ever seen. It's not mine. It was here. Its name is Bob, and it was here when I started working here. And when I walked into the building the first day, I said, "What the hell is that?" Because whoever stuffed it did a terrible job. But apparently, what had happened was somewhere along the lines there was a marketing director who said, "We need an animal to be in some of our product photos." And so they got a hold of this stuffed bobcat and then never did anything with it, thank God, because it wouldn't have went over well. But now he lives above my desk and he's a great conversation starter. Somebody walks up like, What the hell is that chupacabra doing up there?
So we've got a couple of them in the store that came from the farm that we live on.
Yeah.
And they're great. They're a great conversation starter because they lead us right into, how did you shoot that coyote? Well, let me show you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, do me a favor real quick. We're about to wind up here. So what I'd like to do is just give you guys an opportunity to let people know how they could find you. What's the easiest way to check you guys out, where you're located, social medias, any kind of plugs you guys want? Go ahead and shoot them off.
Yeah. I would say the two places we're active the most would be Facebook and our Instagram. Both are just Country Attic Treasures. And then our website is www.countryaddicttreasures.com. We do our best to keep the website updated, but it's a one-man team, me, who I do my best to keep it updated. But even that just represents a small portion of what we get in. We just we like to show a little glimpse of some interesting things that we get in the store, once or twice a day while we're open, and we don't we won't overrun your feed.
You ought to tell them just a quick story about the one we got in today, the three barrel Parker. That's
yeah. For example, this is the type of stuff we get. We work with pretty often. I didn't even have the chance to look over this much, but this is an original Parker, or is it a reproduction?
No, it's a real.
Yeah, it's an original Parker that is a full 12 gauge, 20 gauge, 28 gauge.
No, 28 and 410 combo.
Yeah. It's just a 20 and 410 combo. But according to one of our employees, who's a real Parker historian, he claims that there were only 47 sets of 410 barrels ever made by Parker. And this happens to be one of them. So being a part of a full set with the original case and with the gun in tremendous condition, we're looking at something pretty serious. We haven't put a final price on it yet.
All right, let's do it right now. What's the price? Let's do it right now.
It's in excess of 20,000, I think.
That's not putting a price on it. That's leaving it open so you can gauge interest.
There you go. Well, look forward to look it up in the coming days or so. We'll most likely be able to post it.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. That sounds pretty cool. Very cool. Yeah. All right. Well, real quick, I did want to give you a shout. You said that you were the only one that's manning your social media. I was gonna just compliment you on that because social media is no small task. Most family-owned businesses I see screw it up because they just honestly don't post often enough. They can't come up with quality content on a day-to-day basis, and it falls off to the wayside, and it's something that a lot of people don't invest money in, but that's where it's at today. Whether we want to accept it or not, there's a whole lot of people looking at social media and making all of their buying decisions based on what they see on social. And by looking at your social media, I can tell you guys are doing it right and keep killing it, guys.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys for the time. I'm going to sign off here and let you guys go.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Y'all have a good day. Bye.